Okay, construct parallelogram ABCD. This is actually the same exact construction as the rectangle. We have AB and we have AD, and we know that opposite sides have to be congruent. If opposite sides are congruent, it guarantees both sets of opposite sides are congruent, then it has to be a parallelogram. So if I measure side AB, the side opposite, side CD, has to be the same length. C has to be somewhere on this arc to make that happen. Then I have side AD, I measure that. Side BC has to be the same length, and if it is, if both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, it is a parallelogram, and we've constructed this so that both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. So if we connect this to the intersection I just found, remember to label it point C, I have a parallelogram. Next, construct a parallelogram. Well, this one's totally blank. They gave us a totally blank canvas. So we can make whatever parallelogram we want. And because they didn't give us 3 starting points, we're just going to make up our own. So here's a side of my parallelogram. Here's another side. And then I just do the same exact thing I did in construction 5. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to go ahead and do this one kind of sideways, just mess with you a little bit. But opposite sides have to be parallel and congruent. But just guaranteeing opposite sides congruent will give me that parallelogram. So that's what I'm working on right now, is making a mess with my construction, but trying to measure this segment so that I can get opposite sides congruent. So I measure this side, and it has to match this one down here. And then I measure the longer side of my parallelogram. And that would have to match my missing longer side. Connect the dots, and we're done. And this one didn't give us a name, so we don't have to label that parallelogram. That's all. Next, construct a rhombus. Well, the rhombus is very similar to the parallelogram. The difference is that all the sides are equal. So we have to guarantee that we have 4 equal sides. So the first thing I'm going to do is just draw one side of my rhombus. So there's the length of my rhombus. Great, I measured it. Now every other side has to have that same length. So I'm going to go up here, and I can put the second side of my rhombus anywhere I want on that arc. So I'm going to choose to draw mine right here. Okay, so now I need to make the 2 other sides. Now we already have our length set because they're all the same. So I measure from the top, and I measure so that the right matches the left. Connect the dots, and there is my rhombus. Now let's say you got to this question and you didn't know what to do. You could actually do construction 1 of the square inside of the circle, because a square, it is a rhombus, so it wouldn't be wrong. Next, and there are ways to make a rhombus using diagonals, so this is one way, not the way. And the last construction is to construct an isosceles trapezoid. So for this construction, we need some parallel lines. I'm going to make one side of my trapezoid here, and now I have to make a parallel. And so you might want to go back to our construction notes. We do have a variety of ways to make parallel lines. One way that I like to make parallel lines is, I'm going to shorten this, and you'll see why. Parallel lines, opposite sides of a parallelogram are parallel. So by kind of making a parallelogram, I'm making parallel lines. So if we sort of start with that parallelogram construction, we're on our way to isosceles trapezoid. So I put a dot up here. Imagine that as one side of my parallelogram. So here's the bottom of my parallelogram. The top has to come somewhere here. Now I'm going to make the left and the right of my parallelogram. Here's the length of the left side of my parallelogram. The right side has to be the same length. So I'm going to move from the left over to the right. Now by connecting these intersections, I get a parallel line. So those are my parallels, and now I have to make an isosceles trapezoid. So all we have to do here is I'm going to connect that side of my parallelogram. Now instead of going here and making the parallelogram, I'm going to take that length of this side, and instead of copying it here, if we had continued that arc, it actually hits my line again over there. So I'm just continuing this arc I already did. Whoopsies. And now I'm going to connect these legs, and there's my isosceles trapezoid.